Chicago and the Philippines. A comprehensive review of the week's special community events, featuring many exciting personalities, handled by the most professional Chicago Philippine Reports TV staff.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Chicago Philippine Reports TV, still the #1 Filipino show in the Midwest. I'm Grilly Pascual. Welcome to our show. Today we have all the top stories from the Philippines. We also have what's happening in our own Filipino American community of Chicago. We have interesting interviews led by our very own executive producer, Miss Veronica Leighton. We have Brigitte, Cueter, Carino. All these are coming up and more afterward from our sponsors. Please stay with us.
Incoming passengers of international flights are asked to roll up their sleeves as they enter the country's main gateway, the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. This is an additional screening test that the passengers go through after an overseas flight. This is on top of the thermal scanner, which monitors the body temperature of arriving travelers. The Bureau of Quarantine said they are implementing this added measure following the first reported monkeypox case in the country. The medical officers are on the lookout for feverish body temperature and rashes, two of the symptoms of monkeypox.
Nakita nyo naman po kanina, di ba? Dinidisrobe natin yung mga jackets na hanggat maaari makita natin yung mga signs and symptoms na kailangan nating makita. We do the primary screening using the thermal scanner, and then if we see the quarantine medical officer sees that this person needs to be evaluated further, we do our secondary screening.
The Bureau of Quarantine admits the screening test for incoming passengers is not foolproof.
Hindi naman po lahat nagpe-present with fever. And then after the fever, yung rashes tsaka lang po yan magde-develop. So that's one of the challenges. Kaya hindi po natin masasabi na yung pasaherong dadaan ay makakatch natin on time.
Ang importante sa border natin na meron tayong monitoring kung sino man yung darating at kung mag-develop ng symptoms within the next 3 weeks upon arrival, dapat meron tayong way of monitoring those individuals.
Infectious disease expert Dr. Ronjean Sulante believes there's no need yet to form a monkeypox task force nor close the country's borders. For now, if a passenger contracted monkeypox virus, contact tracers will reach out to those seated near the traveler.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte is ready to face charges in connection with his bloody war on drugs. That's according to his lawyer, former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. But on one condition.
All those who have gripes or complaints against him should file their criminal complaints before a Philippine prosecutor, and if there is probable cause, he is willing to face them, but before a Philippine court. If for any reason that the ICC will continue to exercise its jurisdiction, he will go before Philippine courts for a restraining order.
Roque also shared he met with Duterte at a hotel in Manila on Monday night to discuss the ICC case. Present during that meeting were former Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea and Duterte's Justice Secretary, now Solicitor General Menardo Guevara. Guevara clarified to ABS-CBN News it was just a casual get-together and that as Solicitor General, he is counsel only for the Republic and no one else. The meeting took place on the same day President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. declared he has no intentions for the Philippines rejoining the ICC. Guevara defended Marcos's statement, saying he has the prerogative to determine what international organizations the Philippines may join as chief architect of the country's foreign policy. The president's primary consideration, he said, is the best interests of the country. But on Twitter, lawyer Ruben Carranza, senior expert at the International Center for Transitional Justice, flagged Marcos's 180-degree turn. While he says he won't rejoin the ICC now, Carranza said Marcos in fact was among the senators who ratified the Rome Statute in 2011 because it supposedly signifies the Philippine commitment to human rights and is our contribution to an effective international criminal justice system. Still, Malacanang insists what is at stake is the Philippines' right to self-rule.
Iniimbestigahan naman po ang mga reklamo ukol dun sa mga namamatay during the drug war. Kung kaya't hindi na nangangailangan pang tumugon sa ICC o bumalik ang ating bansa sa Rome Statute.
Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Boyeng Remulla said his office will furnish the ICC with available information of its probe on the drug war killings, not out of compliance, but as a matter of comity. But he is still collating reports on previous DOJ investigations. Various human rights groups have condemned and expressed dismay over the president's position on the ICC. Victims of families who came forward have allegedly been harassed by security forces. Despite this, the National Union of People's Lawyers and the Rise Up for Life and for Rights group say the latest statement from the president won't affect the ICC probe. They said they're ready to provide additional information to the ICC.
Meron naman pong mga dokumentong hawak na rin yung mga biktima at kami pong mga organizations na tumutulong sa kanila. Yung network po ng National Union of People's Lawyers at iba pang lawyers organizations, kaya po naming harapin ang ICC kahit wala yung gobyerno.
The former head of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Attorney Domingo Cayosa, said the ICC retains jurisdiction over the probe into the drug war killings despite the Philippines' withdrawal from the ICC. The withdrawal took effect in 2019. The former ICC prosecutor launched the preliminary examination on the Philippine situation in February 2018. Cayosa explains only those cases that happened after the withdrawal took effect will be affected, as Filipinos will no longer be able to bring any action before the ICC. The same outcome feared by human rights advocates.
We are depriving the people of the possibility of a court of last resort when the processes in the country fail us to give justice to the victims.
The Philippine government has until September 8 to comment on whether the ICC prosecutor should resume his office's probe on the drug war killings in the country.
The urn of late President Fidel V. Ramos is now at the Heritage Park in Taguig. The first 2 days of his wake are only open to family members. But starting on Thursday, his friends, colleagues, and supporters can pay their last respects to the former president based on a schedule. His family says this is to ensure that proper health and safety protocols will be observed during the wake. On Thursday, the wake is only open to government officials and members of the Ramos cabinet. On Friday, members of the diplomatic corps, the business community and civic organizations, as well as the media who covered FVR, will be free to visit his wake. Saturday is reserved for Ramos's colleagues from the West Point Academy, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and other law enforcement agencies in the country. The wake will be open to the public on August 7th from 7 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. the next day. A mass and a prayer service will be held every 5 in the afternoon, while a tribute for the late president will take place every 6:30 p.m. Visiting hours will end every 10 p.m. On August 9, Ramos's remains will be brought to the Hero Cemetery, where he will be laid to rest along with his fellow presidents and war veterans. Ramos's family urged those who wish to send flowers for the late president to just donate to charity institutions close to FVR. Malacanang has yet to say if a state funeral will be held for the Philippines' 12th president. Historian Manolo Quezon explains state funerals are not automatically given to presidents who have passed away.
A president is entitled to a state funeral, is entitled to 10 days of national mourning. But the tradition is that all of this is offered by the sitting president and only announced when the family, or if the family accepts. It's dependent on two things: the president has to offer and the family has to accept.
Former Health Secretary Jaime Galvez-Tan says those close to Ramos knew that his health has been deteriorating since last year.
Last year, remember, it was his birthday, and I was telling all my friends who were with him, that let's see FBR, and they say even the family will not allow a visit. So I knew he was really in a difficult situation. And in a sense, the announcement was expected knowing his health conditions.
Aside from his work ethic, Galveston says he looks up to Ramos's steadfast commitment to upholding peace in the Philippines. An irony, since the former president is one of the country's battle-tested and well-decorated soldiers.
I asked him, Mr. President, you are a general, and but you have never acted at war. I mean, you made peace with the NPA, the Moro National Liberation Front, even with the Reform Armed Forces movement. Why is it so that you, the general, are the peacemaker? And he was saying, Jimmy, if you knew what war was, because I was in the Korean War and the Vietnam War, you would never like to be again in a war.
It was during the Ramos presidency when the government forged a peace deal with the Moro National Liberation Front. Ramos also pushed for peace talks with communist rebels. Now, the general, who is also a peace builder, will soon be laid to rest.
The road to the town of Manabo in Abra is once again open thanks to non-stop road clearing operations undertaken since the magnitude 7.3 earthquake hit the province. This allowed medical workers who came all the way from Ilocos Training and Regional Medical Center to conduct a medical mission in the town. Residents were given free consultation and medicines. The group's team leader, Dr. Joel Beleno, says most of the patients' complaints stem from their earthquake experience.
Karamihan pa rin may mga tumataas na mga blood pressure, may mga nahilo during the earthquake, yung pag-shake po. Yung iba may mga nasugatan din po, pero most of this yung may mga nasugat, dinadala na ho sa Abra Provincial Hospital where half of the members of the team are also there.
They also brought psychologists who conducted psychosocial intervention to people who suffered trauma since Wednesday earthquake, focusing on the mental health of the people.
They do art therapy, and my colleagues here do counseling sa individual. So mga bata, mamaya sa mga matatanda naman po, sir.
The quake also rendered some areas uninhabitable. Authorities evacuated residents of a community in Tangadan village in the town of San Quintin due to landslide risks. Because of this, residents were forced to abandon their homes and no one is allowed to return. Many displaced residents are now staying at a covered court where relief goods are set to be distributed. Affected families will have to wait it out until authorities allow them to return home.
Asian stocks retreated with oil on Tuesday as recession jitters and growing tensions between the U.S. and China over U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan sapped investor appetite. Here at home, Philippine shares traded up, gaining 0.8%, closing at 63.62 as foreign funds turned net buyers. In corporate stories, Metrobank doubles its earnings in the second quarter to 7.6 billion pesos, bringing first-half net income to 15.6 billion, up 33% thanks to faster loan expansion, improving interest margins, strong fee income growth, and lower provisions. Gross loans went up by 9% to 1.3 trillion pesos, and of that, corporate and commercial lending saw 12% growth, while credit card receivables went up by 16%. Meanwhile, deposits grew 12% to 2.1 trillion pesos. Asset quality also improved, with non-performing loans ratio now at 1.9% from 2.3% a year ago. Still in the earnings stream, Pure Gold posted a 4% rise in second quarter income as further easing of mobility restrictions lifted sales. Traffic to all of its stores also up by 10%. This brings first half earnings to 4.2 billion, up over 5%. Lucio Co's retail play opened 9 new Pure Gold stores in the first half of this year, ending June with 507 stores, including 438 Pure Gold stores and 22 SNR membership shopping warehouses.
ViaTimes, vital news, vibrant views for the Filipino Asian communities in Chicago. ViaTimes for your most interesting and exciting reading and your party coverages. ViaTime has very interesting columnists. You name it, ViaTimes has it. Law, Filipino news, dentistry, immigration, humor, serious opinions, health, beauty, mysticism, Bata Corner, showbiz, and intelligently written editorials. Call ViaTimes at 773-866-0811.
Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat and welcome to Veronica's segment of the show. Today I have a very interesting guest and she came all the way from South Africa, believe it or not. And let me introduce her a little bit. Her name is Jermane Boggenpoel. How would I pronounce your last name? It's a long Boggenpoel. Boggenpoel. I did it right. Okay. And Jermane is a South African, and she's has a very, very interesting bio. A very well accomplished lady, and she's the author. And what's the name of the book? It's My Blood Divides and Unites. I like the title, My Blood Divides and Unites. And she will talk about the book a little later. And what Jermane does too is other passion of hers is also something about a private equity fund. She's a manager of a private equity fund, and she's a chartered accountant with a master's in public administration. Well, let us have Jermane introduce herself or explain further about her accomplishments. Welcome to our show, Jermane. How is it there in South Africa today?
Thank you. We are working on various challenges in South Africa with inequality, a high unemployment rate, just coming out of the pandemic. We've also had issues with load shedding when the electricity is not consistent. But having said that, I think people are working on different initiatives and trying to contribute to the country and to addressing inequality, including myself. And as you said, I'm a managing partner of a Black woman-owned and managed woman private equity fund. I also wrote the book My Blood Divides and Unites on racial reconciliation and building inclusion and understanding across groups. And I've recently launched an online course on Udemy dealing with the heart of race and gender inequality in the workplace.
Amazing. What you're doing is really something unusual for many women. And so what is this diversity and inclusion in the workplace? Can you explain it further? And it is online.
Yes. So I'm very excited about my new course. I feel that it addresses inclusion from starting early with an individual, dealing with your identity, introspection on barriers to diversity inclusion, and then it moves to any lingering emotions an individual has to deal with, from issues of their past, issues that their society or community had to deal with. And then it talks about how we can tell our stories in a positive way and connect better and more authentically to others in the workplace, across race and across gender. I've also created a fictitious company, Confusco, and there are 19 animation scenarios where scenes play out between characters to model issues in the workplace which arise because of lack of understanding. And I've interviewed global thought leaders on diversity and inclusion from America. I've interviewed Ian Solomon, who is the Dean of the Frank Batten School of Leadership.
This is really international, right?
Yes.
From South Africa to America to wherever, right?
Yes, it spans across other people interviewed. There is Chering Lama, who is from the Yalmo indigenous group in Nepal. There is Lara Setrakian, who is American, but also Armenian, and her family had been through the Armenian genocide. And there's those are just some of the internationals who were interviewed. So it was really to give a global perspective to race and inclusion.
So why? Okay. So you are trying to reach a certain group or for this online course, right? A certain group.
My course is relevant for Americans who are grappling with racial issues and how to navigate a diverse workplace. And then it also brings in global voices and will be meaningful for anyone around the world who is dealing with issues of diversity and inclusion in the workplace.
So what is really your main purpose in doing this? To reach out to some diverse groups, you said?
My purpose is multifold. One, it is for individuals and HR practitioners and corporates who want to do better at diversity and inclusion. And fortunately, the climate is now ripe where this is an important agenda item for organizations. And then it will help people create authentic relationships in the workplace and deal with issues of constructive dialogue better than they were able to before. So hopefully they'll be more equipped when conflict arises and you need constructive dialogue. And it will allow people to be more introspective, looking at their own journey and history on how that their own where they are has created barriers to diversity and inclusion.
Do you think you would be reaching more people this way via online instead of a person to person approach?
Absolutely. I think where we are with the future of education and edutech, online can be accessible 24/7 to anyone, anywhere in the world. And so I want it to be relevant to where people are at in terms of the format of the course. And having said that, I am available for speaking engagements or workshops, which can be supplementary to the online course. And it also allows people to do it at their own pace.
So what I could say is that you can describe, or we can describe yourself as more of an educator and influencer, correct?
Correct.
All right. I salute you for what you're doing. That's quite hard, but it's really difficult, but it can be done with the purpose of with your kind of purpose in reaching out. Okay, let's go back to your book that you recently published, and my blood divides and unites. Can you please talk about your book?
So I wrote this book over 2 years ago, and the reason I wrote it was for various reasons. One, I come from a marginalized community in Johannesburg with issues of poverty and crime, and I wanted to inspire people who have similar upbringings to let them know that they can overcome. And then I'm from the historically mixed race community in South Africa. The historically mixed race community arose in the mid-1600s when you had the European settlers come to the South Africa, and you had racial mixing between the European settlers with the indigenous Khoisan tribes, with slaves brought in from Indonesia, Madagascar, Sri Lanka, and other lands. And this racial mixing was considered shameful and embarrassing and not spoken about in schools. And I wanted the international community to be aware of this community in South Africa. And also with COVID, we've seen unequal access to healthcare, and we've seen people really struggle. And I wanted a book that was globally relevant to address inequality that's caused by race and gender.
All right. Is the book more of a historical or biographical?
It is biographical, but part social commentary as well. So I start off with my story. It's not written chronological, but it pulls in aspects of my life, and then with a message for South Africans and racial reconciliation. And then the second half of the book is very international, and I've interviewed people around the world, and that gives a message to people from different parts of the world and how we can deal with inclusion and issues of social justice.
Very, very interesting. How can our viewers get hold of your book?
My book is available on Amazon in paperback and also on Kindle as an ebook.
All right, very good. And you said you will publish it 3 years ago, right? 3 years ago?
I published it the beginning of 2019. So that, yes, that would be 3 years.
Okay, so very interesting. I wish you good luck for all the things that you do. Would you like to touch about your work as an partner for the this private equity fund, AIH Capital?
Sure. So AIH Capital was co-founded by myself and Cindy Kuyana, my joint managing partner, last year. And we raised a series of capital to invest in medium-sized companies. And what is unique is that we are Black-owned and Black-managed. And also we have a broad base of shareholders. So our parent company is AIH, the African Women Chartered Accountants Investment Holdings, that has 55 Black women shareholders. And we think that this is a unique model to private equity and also brings about gender inclusion to investing. We will invest in across sectors. We're a generalist fund. But by us investing as a minority shareholder in companies and having a board seat and being involved in the strategy of a company and how it grows, we are adding to how that company addresses gender in terms of bringing on board where we can. We have a small recruitment firm, women executives into the company in looking at ESG imperatives, and also then how they how the company can grow on its customer base as well, and on its product and services, so that it can be relevant to women as well. So we feel it's a unique model, and we hope that it can be serve as a case study on gender inclusion.
Jermane, you're a very fascinating woman. And I wonder, when do you find time to rest?
I must say I am busy, and I am learning to be more mindful and to take time out, because that makes me more creative when I do rest.
Wow, congratulations. Congratulations for all your undertakings in life. And I thank you for gracing our show today. One last word you want to say to our viewing audience?
I really encourage you to do my online course dealing with the heart of race and gender inequality in the workplace. As it's online, you can do it at your leisure. There's reflective questions at the end of every exercise. And it's not hitting people with the hammer and telling people and judging people. It's gently nudging people through reflection on where they at and where they want to be, and how we can come together and work together to tackle society's challenges.
Great, terrific. Thank you so much, Jermane, for gracing our show today. I really enjoyed talking with you today, and lots of good luck. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Yan! Dito na! Perfect!
Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat, and welcome to Veronica's segment of the show. Today, I have a very interesting personality. She is a poet and a writer, a book author, and she came all the way from Texas. Help me welcome our very interesting guest. Please introduce yourself to our viewing audience.
Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Milo Schaff, and I live in California near San Francisco, and I've written a book called Blown Into Now, Poems for a Journey. And it's about how someone who is devastated by grief finds their way along a path that eventually reaches toward joy.
Milo. Okay, Milo. I thought, the book author was a male, and so really, I could not introduce you earlier, but her name is Milo, M-I-L-O, Schaff, S-C-H-A-A-F, right, Milo?
That's
okay.
correct.
I'm really happy to welcome you to our show today. Milo, please tell our viewing audience about your recently published book.
Yes. So I lost my son Alex at the age of 24, and it was
sorry to hear.
Yeah, it was a shocking phone call that I received while I was alone in my house. A friend of Alex's, whose mother called me, and she said, I'm so sorry to hear that your son has passed on. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And that started sort of an avalanche of occurrences that were very, very difficult. He was an adventurer, a world traveler, a veteran, a peace and conflict scholar, and to suddenly have your son gone was a grief. It was a fog that I couldn't find my way out of. But I found along this 12-year path, I found ways to find comfort and unusual occurrences. And I wanted to, after I'd been writing some poems, and I didn't have a way to not write. These poems seemed to come out of me and also help in the healing. So I looked at these poems and I said, I've learned so much from different people about what you do and how you get through it. And so I decided to share those poems and put them together into a book. And one of the wonderful things about it is that each poem has a photograph beside it. And those photographs were taken by my son. Pictures of K2 and their K2, the mountain in the Himalayas, or in the Sierras, and he was so much a person who loved wild beauty and could capture it. And so these photographs provide a pause from grief and allow us to keep going. So I think it's a combination that could really help people. So Blown into Now, and that's his tent that he took a picture of in one of the mountains ranges that he was visiting. So this poem is called Rituals of Friends. And one day I had my eyes closed and I was just thinking about Alex, and I couldn't see his face as clearly. And so I went to some friends and I said, "What do you do?" And this is called Rituals of Friends. I try each day, he whispers, to find color and light in the world again. For if I could unblind, my son is not gone. I wear Suzanne's clothes, she explains slowly. In her gloves, I feel her, and I talk to her children, and I talk every week, and I talk to her grandchildren. He holds my arm. I have pictures of Phoebe, he says, besides candles. Maybe 50. Sometimes I light all of them. Still, he holds my arm. When I meet someone, I describe Phoebe first, and I have a place where I watch for her, a sacred tree hidden among pine and manzanita. They turn toward me. I want to tell them I keep his unwashed shirt. Alone, I breathe cotton and coils of memory. Thank you for letting me read that.
Beautiful. I can feel every word.
Thank you so much.
You've dedicated to your lost son.
It's dedicated to my son, Alex. That's right.
Yes. And how are you doing so far these days?
So I'm much better. The steps along this path were up and down, as you can imagine, and anyone can imagine who has lost a dear one. But now I feel like he's with me, and I just appreciate all that time we had. 24 years. And also, I can close my eyes when I'm in a wild space, somewhere in nature, and we can have a little talk. So it's so much better.
Yeah, most of the time it's so much better to write down your feelings on a story or as a poem, and that relieves a lot of pain from yourself, right?
Yes, it does. And I hope that people will be able to go through the book and get ideas of what they can do to find solace. So the book is available right now in the soft cover that I showed you, but soon it'll be available in an ebook. And the advantage of that is it'll be less, about $4. When you have a book that has photographs in it, if you want the photographs to look good, it's a little bit more expensive. But I wanted to be able to share this with everybody I could.
Yes, that's very good. Okay, Milo, what advice or tips can you give our viewing audience on a loss of a loved one?
So there are a number of things. One is that I tried to walk every day in some natural space, because there it's very healing. Another thing that I did was, and this is something a friend told me, he said, you should watch for secret signs in your environment. Something like a honeybee brushing your cheek, or always coming. So after my father passed, I was sitting in a park, and all of a sudden, and thinking about him, and all of a sudden there were maybe 300 or 400 white butterflies around me. And I was thinking of him, and that happened. And now every time I see a white butterfly, he comes back to me. And so with my son, it's grasshoppers and crickets and praying mantis, the praying mantis. And those have appeared at the most unusual times. When we walked out of the funeral parlor after we viewed my son, I had never seen a praying mantis before, and there's one sitting on the black driveway in his bright green, looking at us. And I've seen praying mantises maybe 6 or 7 more times over these years. And before that, although I'd lived my life, for 3 decades in the same place, I had never seen one. So these are the kinds of things, unusual occurrences you can watch for and listen. Because my mother, who just passed on a month ago, she says, she has little phrases like, "Don't worry, it's going to be okay." And I hear them. So all these things are really healing.
Oh my God.
Spend time with your friends. Those are those people who love you and especially who know your dear one. So those are the kinds of things that I write about in my book.
Milo, it's so touching and so heartrending the way you explain it to our viewing audience. I also just lost a loved one. I lost my husband.
I'm sorry.
And I can feel.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's really it's something that you can't describe, and it has to go on, and it will be better.
Yes, we just have to keep on moving on.
That's right. Keep on moving on.
We have to be strong.
Right, you do.
Yes.
And I can tell you are.
Yes, I really am crying every day.
Yeah.
So, where can we find a copy of your book?
So my website is my name, miloschaff.com, miloschaff.com, and my website is miloschaff.com. And if you go on my website, there's a link to Blurb, who is a printer. So miloschaff.com, and on the very first page, at the very bottom, you'll find the way to order my book. And as soon as the ebook comes out, which should be in a week or 2, that will be on my website as well. And I'll send you a copy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for gracing our show. And one last question. Will there be a sequel to your book?
There will be a sequel to my book. I'm writing about love and different forms of love. So that will be out, but not soon, because Blown Into Now is taking all my time.
Well, congratulations and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you to people who are listening and viewing.
Yes. Milo, I thank you for gracing our show today, and give us a call anytime if you would need our help in your future undertakings. And thank you so much. Maraming salamat. That's thank you in our language. Bye.
Bye.
We would like to welcome all of you to Baladna Jewelry. We have a very big selection of 21 karat gold jewelry imported from the Middle East, from Dubai, Saudi, and Bahrain. And we have a very big selection of diamond. We offer free financing for 6 months, and we have a layaway system which you can leave your stuff for 3 months. We repair gold and we buy old gold. Welcome to Baladna Jewelry.
Salamat po. Hello, good day, Cprtv viewers. This is Pastor Ed from Faith Family Worship Center, coming to you live once again for our devotion, just a very short devotion. And for our devotion this morning, or today, I'd like to read Colossians chapter 1, verses 9 through 14. This is the Apostle Paul's letter to the Colossian church. And this is what he said, starting in verse 9 of chapter 1. For this reason, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying for you. We continually ask God to fill you with the knowledge of His will through all the wisdom and understanding that the Spirit gives. Verse 10, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please Him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to His glorious might, so that you may have great endurance and patience, and giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of His holy people in the kingdom of light. And then verse 13 and 14, for He has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son He loves, in whom we have redemption and the forgiveness of sins. From these passages, we can see how Paul is encouraging the church in Colossae. The church in Colossae was experiencing some real threats from the so-called Gnostics, false teachers who claim that there is more than one way, there is more than one truth, and that Jesus is just one of the emanations from God, that He's not sufficient, that there's got to be another way to God other than the Lord Jesus. And the Gnostics are also claiming that you have to have a special knowledge. You have to belong to a secret society, and you have to have inner knowledge before you can be one with God, or before you can have salvation. And so Paul wrote this letter to the Colossian church, first of all, to encourage them and also to warn them about these false teachings that had pervaded in the church. And so Paul started with just words of encouragement from verse 9, and verse 10, he affirmed their faith and their love towards one another. And if you will notice what Paul said, he said, for this reason, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying for you. Paul understood the threats that the Colossian church was in because of the false teachings and false teachers in their midst. And so he said, I have not stopped praying for you. And we continually ask God to fill you with the knowledge of His will through all the wisdom and understanding that the Spirit gives. So Paul was praying for wisdom and knowledge to be upon the church, so that they will not be swayed by false doctrines. And then he said, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please Him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, and being strengthened with all power according to His glorious might, so that you may have great endurance and patience, and giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified us, or qualified you to share in the inheritance of His holy people in the kingdom of light. So this is really a very powerful prayer, an encouraging prayer for the Colossian church. And he reminded them about how God has rescued them from the dominion of darkness in verse 13 and brought them into the kingdom of the Son He loves, in whom we have redemption and the forgiveness of sins. So from the get-go, from the very beginning, Paul mentioned about their salvation in Christ, and how their salvation in Christ has moved them from the dominion of darkness into the kingdom of the Son He loves. There are only two kingdoms, and we either belong to one or the other, the kingdom of darkness or the kingdom of light. And the way to enter the kingdom of light is by faith, trusting in Jesus, believing in the finished work of the cross, and just accepting Him into your life and repenting from your sins and surrendering everything to the Lord Jesus, making Him Lord and Master of your life. That's the way to enter the kingdom of light, the kingdom of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so, my brothers and sisters, I just want to encourage you with these words. I pray that the Lord will open our eyes, fill us with spiritual wisdom and knowledge and understanding, so that we may know that Jesus is sufficient, that in Jesus we are complete in Him, and that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one can go to the Father except through Him. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.
Good afternoon. This is Brigitte, Carino, Cueter, bringing you this week's local news from our community. Illinois Secretary of State Jesse White is reminding motorists to help improve road safety statewide, including not driving with disability placards or other items hanging from the rearview mirror. Disability placards must be displayed when the vehicle is parked in an accessible parking space, said White. Once the vehicle is moving, the placard should not be displayed. It is illegal to drive on roads with a parking placard hanging from the rearview mirror, as stated on each placard issued by a Secretary of State. People should not drive a motor vehicle with any objects obstructing the driver's view, placed, suspended, or hanging from the rearview mirror or between the driver and the front windshield, rear window, or side windows. Violators of this law can face up to a $500 fine. One of my top priorities is road safety, and driving with a placard or any other item displayed impairs the driver's view. Let's keep one another safe by making sure our windshields are unobstructed. The Illinois Department of Labor has finalized rules for the employment of domestic workers to better define pay, record keeping, and other requirements that apply to domestic work. The rules follow a statutory change that extended the protections of the minimum wage law to domestic workers, who had previously been excluded from coverage. The General Assembly has established that domestic workers deserve the same core labor protections as workers in other industries. With these rules, we hope to make domestic workers' rights on the job clearer and help domestic employers understand their obligations under the law, said Illinois Department of Labor Acting Director Jane Flanagan. The amended minimum wage rules define domestic workers as individuals who are employed to perform tasks in someone's home, such as in a nanny, caregiver, or housekeeper role. The Illinois Department of Public Health announced it is offering free one-time bulk shipments of rapid COVID-19 antigen tests to all interested and eligible long-term care facilities in Illinois. The deadline to apply is August 9th. The tests will be provided at no charge to eligible facilities in the state. To be eligible for the one-time bulk shipment, facilities must meet the following criteria: a federal waiver that allows for the administration of antigen testing, a provider order for antigen testing that has been approved and signed by a medical professional, be registered to report all positive antigen test results to the state of Illinois. The shipments are coming in response to the increased community transmission of COVID-19 across many Illinois counties and are intended to supplement the existing testing program that these facilities are required to conduct. IDPH has acquired 250,000 tests that will be distributed through this offer. These tests may only be administered on-site for diagnostic and screening purposes. The tests cannot be provided for take-home or at-home use. Eligible uses include on-site testing of staff, patients, and residents of the facility. The Illinois Department of Public Health announced that due to limited supplies of the vaccine for monkeypox virus, the state is prioritizing the first dose of the vaccine for those eligible. The change is intended to ensure that as many individuals are vaccinated as soon as possible with the first shot in order to reduce the spread of the virus. IDPH notified healthcare providers of this prioritization via a notice sent this morning. With the demand for the vaccine outstripping supplies, IDPH is advising local public health officials that unless people are in certain elevated risk categories, they should receive only an initial dose of the MPV vaccine until more supplies become available. Illinois is currently reporting 401 cases of confirmed or probable MPV in the state, with 85% of them in the city of Chicago and the rest in 13 counties around the state, including Cook County. The state has received 7,371 doses of the Jynneos vaccine, and the city of Chicago has received 18,707 doses. The state has designated 4,631 doses of its inventory to the city of Chicago. Millions of people worldwide may have long-term smell or taste problems as a result of COVID-19, with women more likely to be affected, a study suggests. About 5% of adults infected with the coronavirus may develop long-lasting changes to their sense of smell or taste, according to the research published in the BMJ. With more than 550 million confirmed COVID-19 cases to date, it means there may be long-term smell deficiencies for 15 million people and taste problems for 12 million, with an unknown overlap of those suffering both for at least 6 months after an infection. President Joe Biden nominated Justice Myung Jae-joon to serve on the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts and Judge Rita F. Lynn to serve on the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. If confirmed, Justice June will be the first Asian American male to serve on the federal bench in Massachusetts, and Judge Lynn will be the first Chinese American female to serve on a district that includes San Francisco and San Jose. NAPABA congratulates its members, Justice Myung Jun and Judge Rita Lynn, said A.B. Cruz III, acting president of NAPABA. Justice June is the second former Asian American Lawyers Association of Massachusetts president to be nominated to an Article III judgeship, and Judge Lynn is a past NAPABA Best Under 40 awardee. Both are exceptionally well qualified. That's all for today. Thank you for watching our news this week. This is Brigitte. See you next time.
And that's our show for today. Thank you all for watching Chicago Philippine Reports TV. We hope you will stay safe and enjoying this day with your family and friends. I'm Maria Girly Pascual. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagsubaybay and we'll see you back here next week.